getting over now? I just got a clip. Oh, Mike, I didn't see a thing just to
We were all listening to your phone call. I'm like,
Now I'm going to have the FBI
Okay.
come over and debrief all you guys, make sure you didn't hear anything.
All right, everybody, welcome to Agenda Review. Calling to order, it is Wednesday, March 10th. Okay, no presentations, correct? Great, rock and roll. Okay, moving right along, Finance Director Sumption. Do you want to do 1, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, just?
You bet.
Great.
So item 1, basically, the mayor and I had been talking, and we were going to change the title from finance officer to finance director, and assistant finance officer to, or deputy finance officer to deputy finance director, in line with other departments who have a director and an assistant director. So the easiest way to do so without amending a whole bunch of ordinances was to do the changes that are presented to you in the first reading.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Great, thank you.
So going on to number 7, that is just our standard acknowledging those volunteers so that they are covered by our workers' compensation purposes. Number 8, we allocated $100,000 out of the 2021 budget for the Rapid City Arts Council to grant out to the arts and humanity organizations in town, and this is their recommendation based on an application process that they oversaw.
Excuse me, Pauline, is that in line with the 2019 numbers then? The $100,000? I know we had to cut it last year because of COVID, but.
Correct. It had been cut in 2019 and 2020, so it is actually back up, I think, before the 2019 numbers.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Then January cash balances for 2021, if you look at that in the general fund, we are sitting at about $36.6 million, with $9 million of that in reserves and $753,000 in designated cash, leaving an undesignated and unreserved balance of about $26.8 million. Keep in mind that the COVID dollars are still in there. We're still taking projects and requests for that one-time spending and getting documentation to support those, and then there'll be additional conversations with that.
Can I chime in on that?
Absolutely.
And I think this is more for a council, but I do think we need to start thinking about if there's a best way to invest those funds, working obviously with the department directors and the mayor. I will advocate once again if it's to really look at one-time spending purchases. I'm a big advocate for Fire Station 1 downtown as well as the West Side Precinct for the police department, but I think these are things that we should, we don't want this money just to sit there. We need to put it to use. So hopefully either we'll have some recommendations soon or we as a council start making some decisions soon. Have any thoughts on that, Pauline?
That's the plan, and if we do a multi-year plan on the spending of this money, those funds will also be invested in something other than a money market account.
Okay, thank you.
Number 10, we recently authorized refinancing our gross receipts revenue bonds, and in that resolution we were going to go out and price them and do a full underwriting. However, we have U.S. Bank interested in doing a private placement sale, and so this resolution would amend that previous one to authorize that private placement. It will actually save us money on issuance costs. 11, I believe those are cleanup costs. 12, those are radios from the police department that are being surplus, I believe. And on number 13, the finance office used to have a band that we shared with IT back in the early 2000s. When IT became its own department, we gave that band to them completely because they needed it more than we did. At that time, we started borrowing, begging, and stealing vehicles from other departments, and right now we have a really old little two-wheel drive sedan that the fire department graciously gave us and is having issues. So we budgeted for a new vehicle for the finance department for in-town travel as well as out-of-town travel, and therefore are requesting to be able to purchase this 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokee off of the state contract, but through a local dealer.
Was that a four-wheel drive?
It is four-wheel drive.
Great. Okay, any questions for Director Sumption? Great, thank you so much. Going back, we're going to go to Public Works. Director Tech, or your department, take 2, 3, 4, and if you want 14 through 27, please.
Thank you. Megan Gould, RTS Manager, she'll speak to item 2, and then I'll discuss the rest.
Great, thank you. Welcome.
Hello, how are we doing? My name is Megan Gould. I'm the Rapid Transit Division Manager. I just wanted to give you a brief little summary of my item number 2 of the introduction and approval for the RTS Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. This plan is something that the federal government, Federal Transit Administration, is making a requirement. It actually was supposed to be implemented last year, but due to COVID, they extended those dates out to all transit agencies. And this actual safety plan just lays out the very specifics of what needs to be done if there's any kind of incident or accident, and to determine if what it would qualify under as far as those 2 definitions would go. Rapid Transit System has always had policies and procedures set in place for any kind of safety issues that take place. This basically is allowing us to make that stronger and give us a secure guideline of what is required to meet federal regulations so that we can continue receiving federal grant funding.
Great. Any questions? Go ahead, Darla.
Yeah, can you tell me what you guys usually receive in federal grant funding? Do you know?
It depends on year to year. It slowly goes up every year. It's based off of an equation off of our mileage, our ridership from previous years, and that's actually reported annually to the National Transit Database, and it averages right around 1.2 million.
Are you going to be down this year because of COVID ridership?
No, actually, the FTA took it into consideration of those 2020 numbers, and they're actually basing our portion out from 2019 numbers. And I'm not sure with what they'll do for 2021, saying that agencies are still down in ridership, but we're hoping that they'll figure out a good equation for us, because we do rely heavily on those funds.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, Megan.
Okay, moving on to items 3 and 4. These are write-offs. Actually, item 3 is a write-off of credit balances, believe it or not. We've had a number of accounts, sewer, water, garbage, that they've closed the account, moved on. They are owed money. We have not been able to find them, so we need to write those off, if you will. I believe then potentially they'll get to the unclaimed property database that the state keeps, I think, is one thing that'll happen. And then item 4 is the write-off of debts that are uncollectible. So much like the ambulance earlier this year, this is a write-off. If you look at the attachments, some of these debts go back to 2005. But the bulk of them are in the years 15, 16, and 17. I believe 15 was the last year that we wrote off debt for our enterprise funds. Any questions on those?
So Dale, what's the purpose of writing off the bad debts? Like you mentioned the ambulance, that we do those. And so is there some kind of a...
I'll let Pauline address that.
Thanks.
Thank you. It's best practices, honestly, for accounting purposes through GAAP. Also, our auditors look at our accounts receivable that are outstanding every year and make sure that we look and see if they're really collectible, and if there isn't a chance that we're going to collect on them, then we need to get them off our books. So just because we are writing them off, though, does not mean that our customers get to skip out on their bill per se, or not make good on it. If they were to come back and try to open up another account, then they would have to pay their outstanding bill. So we still keep it on the computer system and the billing system, we just take it off of our financials.
Great, Mr. Riefenbach.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question, since Pauline's there, would be the same. Is there a reason that we wait 5, 6 years? I mean, shouldn't these be written off each year?
We typically try to write off a set every year, but there has been some issues with our new software that has prevented us from doing so. You'll probably be seeing some parking tickets as well coming forward in the same manner as soon as we get those reports done.
Then, Madam Chair, I have another question. Has the city ever had a collection agency collect on these?
We do try to work with the collection agency through the water department. I can't remember which one they use, but they do have a collections agency that they work with, and they've already made some attempts to do so. And I think that's why you're seeing those from 2005, because people were making payments and now they're not, and so we're just going to get those written off.
I just assume after a year, it's probably pretty much no sense to carry it on accounts receivable, but.
Right. We keep basically 3 years on, but on our books, we know that 3 years ago, those were like 50% likely to collect on those, or 10% likely to collect on those, so we take adjustments for that as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. I think that wraps up.
I'll move
That
on
part?
to items 14 to
Yep,
27,
Please,
if
is
you
there
don't
anything
mind.
that needs to be pulled, or anything that you would like to make us aware of?
I guess I'll leave it up to the council. If you want to have a couple items you want to cover, I'll point out some ones that I have some interest in as well.
I have some questions on 18 and 19.
Any others?
Madam Chair, 14 and 25.
14, 25, anyone else? Okay, great, let's start with 14 then.
Okay, item 14. City of Rapid City came up probably 20 years ago with when we extend utilities to recapture some of those fees, we created construction fees. And they're very specific about the properties that they're tied to. And so in review of some older construction fees, we've identified that there's no benefiting properties left for these particular construction fees. So we're not going to be able to collect. There are existing customers there that have non-conforming service lines that, yeah, they may need to connect to those. However, they've been our utility customer for years, if not decades, and we're not going to charge them again to hook to our system. So that's the primary function for repealing these construction fees. As you can see, the oldest is 7 years old, and actually it's probably a bit older than that because it takes usually a couple years to pass the construction fee resolution. So this is a good practice, I believe. Certainly we want to get these off the books so we're not double dipping some of our customers.
Madam Chair? Yeah, thank you for the explanation, Director Tech. What I was concerned about was the double taxation or double fee on the folks. So with that repeal on that, and I forget the date that it goes back to, but with that date being involved in this, repealing this resolution, that really helped me understand what it is, so that people will not be being incurred with a second fee. So I appreciate the explanation.
Okay.
Very good. Item 15.
That was 14, next one's 18, unless you said you
18, I
had some
thought-
that you wanted
I'm
to
sorry.
add.
Yeah. Item 18 and 19 are actually tied together. Item 19 is a request to advertise for bids for upgrades to our Elk Vale lift station, sewer lift station located up at the intersection of Upvale Road, and I'm drawing a blank of the cross street there. But anyway, it collects all the sewer from the northeast part of Rapid City. We did a major upgrade out there a number of years ago. Now it's time to upgrade what are called the force mains, which pump the sewer from that location up over the hill, and then it gravity flows into our water reclamation facility out east of town. So as part of this project, we've had to obtain easements from private property owners to be able to provide a corridor for the expansion of our force mains. I think right now we have a single 8-inch force main, and we're going to be installing two 16-inch force mains in that corridor. So we want to make sure that the property that we get, the easements that are necessary, will allow us unencumbered use and operation and maintenance of those force mains into the future. And then, as I stated, the next item 19 is just the move forward with bidding of that project to get it kicked off. As you can see, it's a $7 million project. It's a very significant project, but like I said, it will set us up for many years in that northeast part of town to provide sewer.
Ms. Drew, did you have specific questions?
Yeah, I would guess this is budgeted for your department?
Yes, this has been planned and budgeted for many years.
Yeah, and is this any reflection on the Hanny projects that are going on out there with the added development?
This project has been planned for years prior to any of that even showing up. So.
All right. Yeah, I did want to know what the 18 one was about too, so thank you.
If I can add to that too, this is the one that we just authorized a bond for, is for this project.
Oh.
So we'll have bonding that will help fund this as well.
Okay, it's a steep price tag, but well worth it. Thank you.
Mr. Nordstrom?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Tech, I just wanted to acknowledge the technology that has to take place to get this project underway, and especially in my perception is having to go underneath of the interstate and not interrupt traffic. And so I know there's a lot of planning, a lot of easements besides that area, but I'm just impressed with the technology so that this project will be enabled without interrupting or limited amount of interruption on the traffic flows.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Evans.
I don't know if this is something you can answer, but given the lay of the land and how the city obviously has a divider there, was there any thought in the long-range plan of perhaps co-opting with Box Elder and Ellsworth about a second, treatment plant in that side rather than trying to pump everything over the ridge and working with those? Was that ever considered?
Actually, that's a great question. I lose track of time in the past, but the city of Box Elder and Ellsworth Air Force Base a number of years ago, they were on sewage lagoons, which is a common practice of wastewater treatment. I believe the Ellsworth Authority, along with the city of Box Elder, did build a wastewater treatment plant out where their lagoons are located to make it a bit more environmental friendly and to meet DENR requirements. At that time, we had that very discussion, that does it make sense for the city to partner with Ellsworth and Box Elder to participate in the treatment plant. There was a number of analyses that were done to show that it is still more cost effective for us to utilize our existing plant, which has ample capacity to treat that water. The costs would have been considerably more even over the course of the next 50 years if we were to have partnered with that treatment plant. So, great question.
Anything else? Okay, moving along. The next one I have pulled is 25, unless you have some other ones that you mentioned, Mr. Tech.
25, this was a mandate from, I'm not sure which federal agency, but to do a risk, this water risk and resilient assessment. So it, I think, went back to Homeland Security. So we've got to make sure that in an effort to keep our water system safe, not from environmental things, but from nefarious attacks, we entered into a contract, and I believe the deadline is at the end of this year that we have to have this assessment done. That answer your question?
Who pulled
Ma-
number 25?
Madam Chair, I did.
Oh, go ahead.
If I may, Mr. Tech, I'm a liaison to the LEPC, the Local Emergency Planning Commission, and or committee, not commission, committee. And this, I felt this was kind of interesting to dovetail along with the ERP, the Emergency Response Plan, because the emergency management system at the county also is a participant within this emergency planning that is being put together. So I like to pay particular interest or attention to items such as this. So as you mentioned, the nefarious incidents that could take place with our system, we need to be able to respond to it, and this will address that. So that's all I have to say about it. Is that it's one of those things, unfortunately, nowadays it's something we have to do. Thank you.
Mr. Tech, did you have any? Oh, is there a question?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Is this on? Okay. So Dale, this is an alert system?
No, it's not a technical system. It's not something we're going to go build. It's okay, what are the controls that you have in place, both physical, electronic controls to make sure that your water system is secure. I won't say safe, but secure. You know, there was something in the news here recently about a water system in Florida that got hacked. This doesn't, I won't say that this specifically covers that, but that's the intent, is to make sure that those types of things don't happen in your system.
I'm having problems with my mic. System, and it was the alerts that let them know. All right, the alert system might be a dream thing of us, for us in the future.
We have, I won't get into the details of it's our SCADA system. It's what operates our both water and wastewater systems, and they are, I won't say proprietary, but they are unique systems. And from what I understand about the breach that happened in Florida, that was more of a IT issue rather than a water system error, if you will. So.
Well, they found it. That was the cool thing.
Exactly. Actually, it was as I understand it, it was an operator he was doing his job. He was noticing that something was amiss, and stopped anything bad from happening.
Well, I just think that this is very fortuitous for us to be looking at these things at this time, so thank you.
Mr. Weifenbach.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And, I would ask that my colleagues at some point maybe get with Richie or whatever to go down and actually talk to the people involved in this emergency management committee back in 2009 or 2010, it basically was in disarray. And they've made a lot of changes down there. It's really an awesome thing to understand. I think it was shortly after that when we got hit by Atlas, and the response, the combined response between all the players involved, the fire department, the police department, the sheriff, and prior to that, it was in disarray. And today, it's pretty cool to watch, and Richie probably could attest to that or tell you how to get hooked up on that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Great. Mr. Tuck, was there anything else that you wanted to discuss? Great, thank you so much. Moving right along, community development. Ms. Fisher, welcome. Could you do 28 through 31, please?
So items 28 through 31 are from our CDBG division, and Michelle Schulke is here today to answer any questions or give a brief presentation, whichever you prefer.
Great, welcome.
Thank you. Would you like me to go over each item?
Sure.
Okay. Number 28 is authorization to sign the CV contract. That is from the second tranche of CARES Act money we received for Wellspring. 29 is approval of the FY21 annual action plan. That is our plan that will start April 1 and go through March 31st, 2022. Item 30 is requesting authorization to sign again the CV3. That is the second tranche of CARES Act for Youth and Family Services project. And then 31 is a final approval of the second amendment that we had to make to our FY20 annual action plan due to the CARES Act we received.
Any questions? Great. Thank you so very much. Okay. City Attorney's Office, 32 and 33. Mr. Nyberg.
Good afternoon. 32 and 33 are related, both to TID 84. The first one is just the developer agreement. You've already approved the TIF and the project plan. This is basically the agreement we have with the developer that talks about how the developer is going to build the infrastructure, how that's going to work, and how the reimbursement from the TID fund, basically all the terms and conditions of how that is going to happen. Happy to answer any questions. The second item then, number 33, is just the assignment agreement. We provide in that initial developer agreement that the developer can assign the payments from the TID fund to the bank, basically as security for the loan. And so that's what that number 33 accomplishes.
Any questions?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So this has not been an option before for people to sign this agreement and use the bank as part of that agreement? I don't really understand.
No, we do that in a lot of cases.
I would think so. So this is not new?
No.
Okay, all right.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay. Moving right along, mayor council items. It looks like we're just doing some reappointments. 34 is for the Building Board of Appeals. 35 is for the Journey Museum. 36 is for Parks and Recreation. Director Beegler, do you have anything to add? When do they start? Is it effective immediately, or?
Yes, if approved, they would start with the very next Parks and Rec Advisory Board meeting, which would be the April meeting.
Okay, so it would be the April. Great. Any questions? Fantastic. Okay, moving right along. 37, 38, 39. Can you go back to Mr. Nyberg? Or do we have any questions on that? Right. Okay. Before we adjourn, pardon? Oh, wait. Does the fire department want to speak? Put you on the spot? No.
It looks extremely important, Chief.
We did get a handy dandy.
Tell Carlson to go without internet.
Yeah, this one is highly important. Request to spend $350. The amount went over the aggregate for the year
Oh,
for
yeah.
Midco, so that's why
Sorry.
we're coming. But it's our main training station, so they're going to broadcast from there. So they need to have a fairly sizable pipeline to get that information out. So they'll broadcast from there to the rest of our stations over the internet. So, and just if I have a second, that I did put our annual report on your tables. If at any time you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Come see me. I'm happy to give you a tour of the station, especially as we talk about Station 1 and the remodel. But just a note, our new PIO, who is on maternity leave, she just had her baby on Saturday night. She was the one that put this together. So she designed it and put it all together and
How did
then
they
had
jump
Simpson
over that?
sprint it. So,
Good.
any questions?
Madam Chair?
Any questions for him while he's there?
Yeah,
It looks like I skipped over 5 and 6, so sorry about that.
that's all right.
No offense. Go ahead, Mr. Solomon.
Thank you. I just want to say this is great material. Please give our appreciation to your public information officer, and congratulations on her arrival. Thanks for the communication as well on that. I think that's always helpful for us to see, and especially the year-by-year comparisons.
Yep.
You guys had a tremendously busy 2020, so thank you and your team for what you've done. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great. And Director Beeker, do you want to go back to number 6? 3 steps forward, 2 steps back.
Yes, item number 6 is we're requesting authorization to go out to bid to resurface the leisure pool at Roosevelt Swim Center. It has reached the end of its useful life and is starting to flake, and that's a sure sign that it needs to be replaced. We have funding in our Parks and Recreation CIP to fund this.
Would this be done prior to this summer or after?
No, this will be done during our shutdown, which is in August.
Okay.
So it will not affect any of the swim team's use of the facility. And it is just the leisure pool, so we'll still have the lap pool indoors and the 50-meter lap pool outdoors for use.
Great. Any questions? Mr. Stroman?
Hey, Jeff, as long as we're talking about resurfacing, is there any plans to do some repairs at the Sioux Park tennis courts?
There is discussion right now with the Black Hills Tennis Association and the school district and Parks Department for some, perhaps a Vision Fund project to come forward for complete reconstruction of those courts. So that is something that is happening right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Great. And before we leave, there's, go ahead, Mr. Weifenbach. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess you've had some conversation about redoing the Sioux Park tennis
Correct.
courts?
Correct.
Do they have racquetball courts out there too?
Yes, we do have, we do have racquetball courts.
Has there been any conversation on what the price tag would be for that?
No, not yet. There is an engineering firm that will kind of try to put all that together, give us some real good estimates and options that might be available for reconstruction of those courts.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Great. Before we adjourn, Ms. Drew said she wanted to give a brief update.
Yes, thank you. I am part of the County City Detox Board, and we meet quarterly. And I did have some updates on the Minaloosahan camp that I wanted to just let you know, as far as it's not a police-oriented issue, but more of a mental health and how they're handling some of the problems there. I'd like to say, first of all, that this was a project done by educated, probably a generation younger than me, American Indians that really had the best interests of their relatives in their hearts. And they found out, just like most of us in the police force and the fire department, any emergency systems, that dealing with the populations that showed up there, being whether they're drinking or on drugs, is very difficult. It's a big nut to crack. And so they thought they could have maybe a wet tent on site where people could just live and do their thing. The outcome was fights, and some people getting pushed into fires and things like that. And I'm not speaking out of school. This was in a public meeting. So they have realized that that's not something they want to actually address with this camp. So they've decided to be a dry camp now, and that is also causing problems. But they are working with our care campus and our crisis center. They came in, it wasn't a scheduled meeting. These people came in, and the group from Minaloosahan came in and said, you know, we just don't know how to fix this. We don't know how to take care of this. We need some advice. And I thought that that was very, I don't know, interesting. And now the two are working together. So when there's problems out at the Minaloosahan camp, people are actually bussed in a van, and they're dropped off at our care campus to sleep it off or whatever happens. And so they are working together now to try and make this camp safe, but they're using the city resources. And we haven't seen like an uptick in people coming into the city and using those resources. The numbers are about the same. Not sure what that means, but it just means that we are not this far apart now, that we are working together more with our city resources, our county resources, and we're trying to help in any way we can keep that camp as safe as possible. And the realization that this is really a big order when it comes to police and fire, I think is moving a little bit closer for everybody. So it is on trust land. There's really not a lot we can do up there, but they came in, you know, the folks that were in charge up there came into us and said, into the detox people, and said, how can you help us with this? Which I think is a big step forward. So I wanted you guys to know that there are some changes going on, and I think that that's important to know that we're moving closer together. Thank you.
Great. All right. Go ahead.
If I might, thank you so much for sharing that. Almost on a weekly basis, I receive phone calls from good-hearted organizations and individuals that are wanting to help that segment of our population that truly is in need. And in many instances, if they don't have the appropriate training to provide the assistance, they create more issues than imaginable. And the fact that you took the moment to share that today is yet another example of what we can share back with them so that we can get them connected to the right organizations so that they assist maybe those already established facilities in offering those services. And with your permission, if you don't mind, I would like to maybe defer some of them to you if they want some specifics.
Sure, if they want to, I would probably direct them to the detox board president, and he has a lot more answers than I do, or Barry Tice, who also has a lot of the answers. So certainly I could be a conduit of information, so thank you.
So in finishing, Madam Chair, the day that all of you allowed me to sit before you and launch this idea of something called agenda review, I always dreamt that it would include conversations like this, and this is when it's a success, when we're openly sharing information back and forth, so thank you very much.
Mr. Weifenbach.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Alderman Drew. I appreciate the reality of the situation, and sometimes the only way we can understand the situation is to immerse ourselves in the situation. And I know the police department, the fire department, and a lot of city officials, the county, that they're working diligently to try to, you know, lessen that gap. And when people start to realize the ramifications of what happens in the community with particular persons in the community, we can move forward until when we have these good, honest conversations and realize there's a reality there that, because sometimes we live in a fantasy world that we can just change everybody and make everybody better and all those things, and we all can just get along. That's not really the case all the times. People have to get immersed in it, look at it, see, take it from their perspective, And then I wanted to, just to switch directions. I got a phone call from someone in the town who'd been doing a lot of projects with the city, and they just wanted to tell me how great Mr. Nyberg was to work with, and they were over the board with compliments on how their situation went. So I wanted to share that, and also wanted to share the opportunity that with having Miss Fisher in the office that she's in there, in the interim part of it. I'm really excited about the opportunities. I've worked with her over the years for a long time, and you may think she's soft, but she's really not. Sit across the table from her a couple times, I come out with a couple black eyes and a broken nose, and I realized I probably went too far. But I'm excited about the opportunities that we have with looking at the culture of our city and looking at not only about, there's been a lot of conversation about the form of government, which to me is insignificant, but what is significant is how we govern as a council, how we govern as the people in here. I got here late today, and I apologize for that, but Lance and I had spent 2 hours or more in a meeting at the landfill. There's going to be some things that are going to be coming forward that are exciting. We're looking at it from a different approach, trying to make it longer lasting things so we don't get knee-jerk reactions like they did in 2012, and trying to give the people in those positions, the frontline people that are working the positions and stuff, a little bit more power and authority, because they're the guys that are making decisions on a daily basis there. So as that comes forward, we'll fill you guys in. It was exciting. We got immersed in the conversation and ran a little bit late, so I apologize for that. So, and thank Madam Chair for giving me a minute.
Great. All right, I'm sure we'll continue the discussion on Monday evening at our council meeting. Thank you, everybody.